So, Aaron, we're going to get to the story right now about Clinton's lawyer was charged with lying to the FBI during the Trump-Russia inquiry. Now, we're gonna this gets a little complicated, but trust me, we're gonna clear it all up for you. That's why Aaron's here, and it actually isn't that hard to follow. So let's just start. Michael Sussman, Hillary, this is the guy. Now, he is a partner with Perkins Coie, who represents the DNC, right? That's the Democratic National Committee. Now, he's being accused of making false statements during meetings with the FBI General Counsel, Jay Baker, and he's also in trouble. With Clinton lawyer charge, this is from Buzzsaw. He says, with Clinton lawyer charge, the RussiaGate scam is now indicted. In accusing Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussman of lying to the FBI, special counsel John Durham offers new evidence of the fabrications behind the Trump-Russia conspiracy theory. Now, I've maintained at this story that this was complete fabrication. RussiaGate was made-up, evidence-free conspiracy theory, and they still don't have evidence for it. Okay. Well, what they'll point to Twitter trolls as evidence that Russia overthrew our election. Here we go. Michael Sussman gave the FBI attorney Jim Baker documents and data purporting to show that computer servers associated with Trump and Alpha Bank were in regular contact. This was evidence, Sussman argued, of a possible covert back channel. Now, I know about this story because Cenk Uygur covered this ad nauseum, this story about how there was a ping going from that bank to Trump servers. Turns out it wasn't Trump servers. And that was a completely made-up story, but we're going to get to that. Sussman told Baker, the FBI guy, that he was not working for any client and was simply passing on information that had been provided to him by multiple cyber experts. Multiple. Okay, according to the detailed indictment by special counsel Durham, Michael Sussman was in fact trying to plant a politically motivated scam. The purported covert Trump Alpha channel has been cooked up by an unnamed tech executive positioning himself for a top cybersecurity job in the anticipated Hillary Clinton administration. So this backfired on multiple levels. So to spread this to the media and intelligence community, the executive and Sussman coordinated with Mark Elias, a colleague of Sussman's at Perkins Coie and the top lawyer for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. So you see what they're doing. They're cooking up a conspiracy theory, and they're going to pitch it to the FBI, which is what they were doing. Michael Sussman and Mark Elias, in turn, coordinated with the private intelligence company Fusion GPS. Now, you remember, they were hired by the Clinton campaign also. So they're all working together, okay? Elias had hired the firm on Hillary Clinton's behalf to produce the Steele dossier, the collection of fabricated reports by ex-British spy Christopher Steele, alleging a longstanding Trump-Russia conspiracy blackmail relationship. So you see how this is all working together? Okay. So this is slide 11. GPS Fusion then gave its marching orders to the Hillary-friendly journalist over at Slate. And they said, time to hurry. So they gave him this story, and they said, time to hurry, like, you better get this published, right? And the indictment then describes that in response, Foyer, who's the reporter at is that how you pronounce his name, Foyer? How do you pronounce his name?
Franklin Foyer.
Franklin Foyer. He then forwarded a draft of his article that he's going to use to smear Trump to Fusion GPS. With the message, first 2,500 words. So do you see how they're all working in? So this is amazing, right? And here's the article. So there's the article. Was a Trump server communicating with Russia? There it is. It says, this spring, a group of computer scientists set out to determine whether hackers were interfering with the Trump. They found something they weren't expecting. Yeah, made up story. And so this is what Glenn Greenwald said. He says, just think about that. Foyer knew that it was the Hillary Clinton campaign planting the story, but did not bother to disclose that in his story. It was Hillary's own campaign and its operatives who concocted the story at the time she and Jake Sullivan pretended that it was Slate which uncovered it. And here she is. So she did a series of tweets where she pretended like this was in news to her. So there she is. Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert. So there's that. She goes, in response to our new report from Slate. So she's pretending that her and Sullivan learned about this from the story they planted. Huh. This could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. Computer scientists have what? Computer scientists. The secret hotline may be the key to unlocking the mystery of Trump. There was no secret. It's all made up. It's time for Trump to answer serious questions about his ties to Russia. So this was October 31st, right before the election she's doing this. And Slate. And you remember right before the election this year, they were doing the exact opposite. They were censoring stories negative to one of the candidates. That would be Joe Biden. So this is amazing. 4 things you need to know about the Trump. Donald Trump has a secret server. It was set up to communicate privately with Putin-tied Russian bank called the Alpha Bank. When a reporter asked about it, they shut it down. One week later, they created a new server with a different name for the same purpose. That was just that was not Trump's server. That was a marketing company's server, and they marketed some stuff for Trump's hotels, plus a lot of other companies. It had nothing to do with Trump. And so this is what she's pushing. And both Hillary and Jake Sullivan were pretending that they had just learned about the shocking story from Slate, when in fact it was Hillary's own lawyers planning it. In other words, it was Hillary and her team who had manufactured the hoax, then pretended they were just learning about it and believing it to be true because a media outlet to which they had fed the false story had just published it. And here's Hillary, here's that guy, that Franklin Foer, the journalist who took the story from the Hillary Clinton campaign and then printed it, knowing it was planted. He went on with Rachel Maddow, and you want to see what Rachel Maddow has to say?
We are blessed as a country to have journalists as talented as you and Franklin Foer writing.
We are blessed. We are blessed to have journalists as talented as you and Franklin Foer planting stories at the behest of the DNC and the Clinton campaign. We are blessed to have them. You want to hear it again? It's fun for me to listen to.
We are blessed as a country to have journalists as talented as you and Franklin Foer writing about this, because it's a difficult thing, and the storytelling ability around a story like this is very important, because it's hard to get at the core of it unless you're great with words.
So, Aaron, I just come in and but we're not halfway. We're only halfway through the story because there's way more to it. But I know you got stuff you want to say about that.
Well, look, let's consider, what if Trump had done this to the Hillary Clinton campaign, gone to the FBI with a story that the Trump campaign was involved in fabricating to try to gin up an investigation, and then also leaked that to the media and pretended as if it was some huge explosive story before the election. I mean, this would be a national scandal. This has come out now, and the reaction to it is it's been pretty mute. It hasn't gotten very much attention. And the reason why it hasn't gotten attention is because it's yet again more evidence that the multi-year RussiaGate craze that we were subjected to was a scam. And such a scam that it involved fabricating evidence and trying to get the FBI to investigate it and planting it in the media with credulous journalists who were actually, in the case of Franklin Foer, emailing a Clinton campaign contractor, Fusion GPS, to get their approval or their input, and actually taking direction from them when they said to him, as you quoted, time to get moving. And the indictment for the first time, you remember for 2 years we had so many indictments in the Mueller investigation, and they were these long-winded things, and like the Mueller team tried to make it look as if they were on the hunt of they were closing in on a conspiracy. But of course, you would read the language carefully, and there was nothing there. But they gave the media a narrative to make them think that there was something there, conspiracy. Now we get an indictment where we have concrete proof that the actual conspiracy, the only conspiracy, was the one that was involved with the Clinton campaign and its contractors and its subservient journalists to plant a fake Trump-Russia conspiracy theory. And the what they did is it's pretty crazy. So basically, Michael Sussman, this lawyer who's been indicted, he's working behind the scenes with a unnamed tech executive. We don't know who it is. There's speculation about who it is, but he hasn't been identified yet. And basically, they're working with the team to try to come up with this narrative that could somehow present a case where DNS traffic, like web traffic between a Trump server and this Alpha Bank server, a Trump marketing server, I should say, is possible proof of a secret covert channel. And the indictment itself quotes the actual people who were tasked to work on this, because this tech executive got some people involved to help him out to fake this story. And one of them says that, look, let's be honest here, there's nothing here. And we're really going to look bad if people apply any skepticism to this. And the executive himself admits that this is a red herring, that it's fake. And what's actually worse, it's not even that they try to make something out of something innocuous, like they took this Trump marketing server and tried to make that look as if that was Trump Tower communicating with Russia. This bank, Alpha Bank, they allege that actually some web traffic was concocted. It was faked, which is criminal. So it's not just this case where they found some web traffic between a Trump marketing server sending spam to people with an Alpha Bank address. Alpha Bank alleges that actually some of this web traffic was faked, which means that someone was deliberately, criminally trying to create this connection between Trump and Russia, however thin it was. So
go ahead. So
it just raises questions. So this is one more window into what a scam RussiaGate was. So what else was the result of a conspiracy like this? And I think there's a lot of windows to look at here.
So what you're saying is that they invented some of that data that was coming from their server. So in order to plant this conspiracy, the Clinton people invented the data. Didn't exist, just like CrowdStrike invented that Russia had hacked the DNC server without any evidence. So they just invented that. Because if they had evidence, they would have shared it with everyone. They didn't, means there is no evidence, which means they made it up just like they made this up. So again, proving the theory at this show that how is it that a pothead comedian in his garage could get RussiaGate 1,000% right when everyone else for 5 years, a half a decade, was wrong and pushing an evidence-free conspiracy theory, which no one will ever have to pay a price for. And we're going to get to that. Let's keep going. So
Jimmy, let me say quickly a couple things. First of all, it's important you raise CrowdStrike, because guess who is the Perkins Coie Clinton attorney who hired CrowdStrike?
I'm gonna. Is it Elias?
It's Michael Sussman.
Oh, Sussman. Okay.
So the same guy who was working with this unnamed tech executive to fabricate a Trump-Russia tie is also the same guy who hired CrowdStrike, which generated the allegation that Russia had hacked the DNC.
So what else do you need to know?
There's a lot more to say about it, but let me also say too, what these guys were doing, these journalists like Dexter Filkins and Franklin Foer, who reported all this credulously without skepticism, even though, by the way, even before we knew all this, it was obvious that this was a scam, which I've written about before. And it was obvious because, first of all, this theory is so ludicrous that like Trump and a Russian bank are using a server to secretly communicate. It's like, it was obviously absurd, but their cover story that they told Franklin Foer and Dexter Filkins is hilarious. Both Filkins and Foer repeated this without any skepticism. The researchers who they spoke to said that the reason they came across this traffic is because basically after Russia hacked the DNC, allegedly, they became concerned that Russia was then going to hack the Trump campaign as well. Because if the Russians were hacking Democrats, and they probably are going to hack Republicans as well. So what they told Foer and Filkins, in which Foer and Filkins repeated for their audience credulously, is that we were just trying to protect the Trump campaign. We were trying to protect the integrity of the election. That's the cover story that both the New Yorker and Slate printed. And now we learn in reality what was actually happening. These people were working on a Democratic party-connected scam with the Clinton campaign to fabricate a Trump-Russia tie and lying to the media about that they were just concerned citizens who came across some suspicious traffic.
And I want to show you even more. So this was way after this. I'm pretty sure this was way after this story was already debunked. No, it doesn't matter. This was
October 2018 when Dexter Filkins of the New Yorker decided to recycle Franklin Foer's story, which had come out 2 years before.
Yeah, so it was already debunked, right?
Yeah, but RussiaGate was so deranged and our media was so reckless that the New Yorker, like, sort of like this highbrow magazine, elite journal of liberal opinion, decided to recycle this Trump-Russia bank story.
And here it is.
I mean, what more evidence do you need? It's very, very obvious, and it's really Occam's razor here. The fact that we still have not been able to rule out the idea that this was a covert communication channel 2 years after the fact that no one has come forth with a plausible explanation for why this was happening, for why Alpha Bank was one of 3 organizations communicating with the Trump server in those months leading up to the election is just completely remarkable. And I think the fact that Frank's story got overlooked or criticized as much as it did, and the fact that now it's being revisited and you have the editor of the New York Times saying that there, was a story there, just shows the lack of imagination.
It doesn't show the lack of imagination. It shows that they were actually imagining the whole story and it was completely made up. That's what that means. And 2 years later, she's still pushing a completely debunked story. And Chris Hayes is giving her a platform to do it without pushing back. And that's what you look like after you've sold every piece of your integrity. That's what you look like right there, what Chris Hayes looks like. That's the look you have on your face. What does a face look like with no integrity? Right there. And so she's, again, another operative. What's her name?
Natasha Bertrand, and that's why I call them, Jimmy, Blue Anon, because whereas QAnon is on private internet forums and chat groups, Blue Anon is on cable news every single night, spewing deranged stuff like this.
And there's the guy right next to her, Franklin Foyer. That's the guy there's the guy who took the bogus story from the Clinton campaign, published it. He knows it's a bogus story. So does he. And they're all sitting there lying. And you wonder why people don't trust the news. You wonder why people get their news from potheads on YouTube. You wonder why people do that. This is why. They're lying with straight. This is 2 years after that story was known to be untrue. There it is. And I just want to show you what WikiLeaks revealed, that the Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party has a long list of their toadies that work for them in establishment media, right? Exclusive new email leaks reveal Clinton campaign's cozy press relationship, off-the-record Manhattan cocktail parties, planting stories with friendly journalists, all of it laid bare. And that's by Glenn Greenwald. And I just want, here's how they place the story. As discussed on our call, we are all in agreement that the time is right. Time is right. Place a story with a friendly journalist in the coming days that positions us a little more transparently while achieving the above goals. Who should we have do it? We should have has a very good relationship with Maggie Haberman of Politico over the last year. We have had her tee up stories for us before and have never been disappointed. While we should have a larger conversation in the near future about a broader strategy for re-engaging the beat press that covers Hillary, for this we think we can achieve our objective and do the most shaping by going to Maggie. And I just want to show you, here's the list. Here's a list of the journalists that were working for them. Columnists, pundits, Kiki Finney from the lead this week's work, just to start. Additional surrogates, Philippe Padet. Okay, so Dan Balls, Wolf Blitzer, Gloria Borger, Mika Brzezinski, David Brooks, Gail Collins, John Dickerson, E.J. Dion, Maureen Dowd, Ronan Farrow, Howard Feynman, Ron Fournier, Mark Halperin, Chris Hayes, John Heilman, John Carl, John King, Mara Eliason, Rachel Maddow, Ruth Marcus, Chris Matthews, Dana Milbank, Andrea Mitchell, Nora O'Donnell, Robin Roberts, Eugene Robinson, Charlie Rose, April Ryan, George Snuffleupagus, Robin Sproul, Karen Tumulty, and Jeff Zeleny. That's just the list we got. That's just the ones we know of for sure, super sure. So I just want to go back to this. So just so you know, that's why no one trusts the media, because they're liars and they're paid by the establishment to lie, and that's what they do. All those people there are paid liars. Okay. According to Steele, it was Michael. So Steele, the guy who put together the dossier, he was paid over $100,000 to put together a bunch of garbage that had they're just made up stories. It was Michael Sussman in July 2016 who first informed him about the Alpha Bank server story. So again, more proof that it was Sussman who made this up. Sussman efforts yielded purported DNS traffic between a Trump-adjacent marketing server and the Alpha Bank in Russia. Sussman concealed this plot from the FBI, along with the fact that he was billing Hillary Clinton for his involvement. So this guy was completely, first of all, I know the FBI knew he was working for. So that's the thing that when I first read the story, I'm like, wait a minute. The FBI didn't know that guy was working with the Clintons? Of course. Well, the meeting with the FBI, for example, where he tried to push the story or did push the story, he billed Clinton for that meeting, called it work and communications regarding a confidential project. Now realize what he's doing. Sussman, working for Hillary Clinton, is going to the FBI and pretending he's not working for Hillary Clinton, at the same time billing Hillary Clinton for that meeting. That's ballsy. And what that tells me is they're all working together. Hillary Clinton wasn't worried about the FBI and finding that out. In fact, according to Durham, all or nearly all of Sussman's work pushing the Alpha Bank story was billed to the Clinton campaign. Hiding the money trail was established RussiaGate practice. His law firm, Perkins Coie, and the Clinton campaign concealed that they funded the Steele dossier until a subpoena, I remember when this happened, until a subpoena from the House Intelligence Committee forced them to admit the truth on October. They had denied it that they had anything to do with the funding of the Steele dossier, and then they had to admit that they did. They paid Fusion GPS, who got the thing for Steele to do it. The FBI also concealed Steele's Democratic funders from the FISA court when it used the dossier to. So they used that. So Clinton funds, gives money to Steele to print a bullshit dossier about Trump. Then the FBI takes that dossier to the FISA court, doesn't tell the FISA court that this was funded by opposition research by the Clinton campaign. They conceal that. Why do they got to be lying? Because it's all made up. That's why. Along with the FBI, by the way, that's how they got the warrant to do a tap on Carter Page. And again, remember, you can do there's a two-hop rule. So if they got a warrant for Carter Page's phone, they can also listen in on anybody he talks to and anybody that person talks to. That's called the two-hop rule. Whoa, you think you live in a free society, huh? Along with the FBI lawyer who previously pled guilty for lying to the FISA court to spy on ex-Trump campaign official Carter Page, it's clear that much of the criminality of the RussiaGate was not from anybody in Trump-Russia collusion, but by those who fabricated. So again, it wasn't Trump and his campaign that is the criminals in this story. The criminals are the Clinton campaign and the FBI. What do you mean the FBI? We'll get to that. The indictment of Hillary's lawyer in connection with propagating a fake RussiaGate story that many corporate journalists spread sheds more bright light on the seedy underbelly of the DNC media access. And we just showed you all those journalists who are on the payroll working for the DNC. And that's why they were almost all ignoring it, hoping that it goes away. The indictment approved by the Biden Department of Justice, not Trump's Department of Justice, the Biden Department of Justice and his Attorney General explicitly states that the Trump Alpha Bank story is a sham. And yet most of the journalists who spread it, Natasha Bertrand, Franklin Foer, Dexter Filkins, Chris Hayes, have barely acknowledged it, let alone grappled with it. This is the perfect microcosm of the RussiaGate fraud that the country had endured for 4 years. Hoaxes were repeatedly cooked up by private intelligence operatives working for the DNC or anti-Trump factions within the CIA and the FBI, and then fed to friendly reporters who laundered the falsehoods by publishing whatever they were given without the slightest concern for whether they were true. It's just a small, this is from Isaac Shore over at the National Review. He says it's just a small sampling of the journalists who were swept up in just one botched story on the Trump-Russia relationship. But it's nevertheless frightening how easily a campaign's political and very well-placed personnel interests set wheels in motion at the FBI and in most major American newsrooms. wheels that stayed in motion for the better part of half a decade. And just Glenn Greenwald tweeted this out. Everything you need to know about how the corporate media works in 2 screenshots you want to see. Rachel Maddow rooted for the Steele dossier to be true, and then it fell apart. And then she pushed every bullshit story possible. And then how did she get punished? She got a new contract for $30 million a year. Do you know how much money that is per day? It's $114,000 a day. I'm pretty sure. Check my math on that. It's almost $15,000 per hour. That's what Rachel Maddow makes. Almost $15,000 per hour. Okay. Now, how did she handle this revelation that this story she and her whole network has pushed that is completely bogus? How did she handle it? Well, oh, by the way, before I get to that, I just want to show you that the FBI, the way they wrote the indictment, makes it seem like the FBI was a victim to Sussman and the Hillary Clinton campaign scam. Like they didn't know. Like I just said before, how did they not know who Sussman was and that he was working for the Clintons? Well, I'm going to say they did. And here's what Glenn Greenwald says. He says that claim that the FBI was the victim and they were duped. It falls short. This claim is dubious for 2 reasons. It is inconceivable that high-level FBI operatives like Baker would have been unaware that this Perkins Coie partner was deeply enmeshed with the Clinton campaign and DNC politics. And 2, the FBI concluded very quickly that there was nothing to the story, yet never said anything, allowing #resistance journalists to continue telling the public that this fraudulent story was true. Indeed, Sussman's own Twitter account reveals an obviously close relationship with that FBI official, James Baker, throughout the summer of 2016. But the FBI, still under the command of former director James Comey, chose to say nothing about its findings, which debunked the Trump Alpha Bank fraud. So they had already debunked it, that the FBI kept it to themselves. And then they pretended like they were the dupes of this scam, when of course they knew exactly who Sussman was. So Glenn goes on to say this in turn allowed the same army of liberal employees of media corporations that perpetrated most of the RussiaGate frauds to continue to deceive the public into believing that it was true long after it was clear that it was fiction. And so that's the FBI's complicity in this. And now watch how Rachel Maddow, who just got a $30 million contract for reporting stuff like this with a straight face, how did she cover this story now that it's been confirmed it's a garbage story? Did she cover it as a garbage story? This is how she covered it. On Thursday, Maddow called one of the countless resistance prosecutors in the MSNBC stable, Barb McQuaid, to impugn the charges against Hillary. So they're trying to discredit this indictment. That's how MSNBC and Rachel Maddow is reporting. They're trying to discredit the indictment, which discredits the story. So the duo implied that the case was brought only to beat the expiring statute of limitations, insisted that the indictment should not have been brought because the lie was not material to the FBI's investigation. So it's okay to lie to the FBI as long as you don't think it's material. And it implied that it is merely an attempt to appease angry Trump supporters demanding indictments from Durham. It was left unexplained why Merrick Garland would go along with so there's Rachel Maddow saying that, oh, they're just doing this to appease Trump voters and it's a garbage thing anyway. Well, Merrick Garland why would he go along with this? That's a Biden appointee. Why would he go along with it? They never talked about that. It never brought it up. And so here's my last slide, and we'll go back to Aaron. We have yet again convincing evidence of the axis of power. The DNC, their corporate media allies, and the security state services that again and again conspired with one another to disseminate false RussiaGate stories to the public. That's how it works. DNC establishment figures, corporate media elites, and CIA and FBI and the NSA. So let me bring back in, were you surprised first of all, Rachel Maddow, again, getting $15,000 an hour to lie to you do a worse job than I am in my garage. What would you like to comment on the rest of that story? Go ahead.
To me, it's a good illustration how the news media is faker than Hollywood. Like in Hollywood, the highest paid actors, they have to have some talent, right? Like they have some ability at what they do. Whereas in news media, the worst journalists possible, the people who like push frauds and lie to their audience constantly, get paid $30 million a year. I mean, that was Rachel Maddow. That was the consequence of Rachel Maddow pushing the dumbest conspiracy theory of all time for 4 years. She got $30 million because it was good for MSNBC's ratings, and the rest of the hosts aren't really attracting anybody. So that's the talent that they had to go with. But it's like it just speaks to what a joke our media has become. And on that point, you see this indictment. After 4 years, where any single possible development in RussiaGate, like a hearing or an indictment, whatever, that would like dominate the news cycle for 24 hours. It was like, MSNBC was nonstop all over this. Now we get an indictment for someone involved in pushing a scam to in the service of the Trump-Russia conspiracy theory. And, we're covering it, but otherwise it's been mostly ignored. And people like Maddow and the New York Times have been doing their best to downplay it. Maddow did, her story came out, her segment came out the night before the indictment. So she wasn't covering the indictment. She was covering a leak from the Sussman camp about the indictment and totally spun it in the service of their narrative, that this was just some trivial charge. So she didn't actually cover the details of the indictment that came out the next day, which showed that the Trump Alpha Bank story, which she had pushed and praised Dexter Filkins for, talking about how blessed we are as a country, how that was a result of a conspiracy, a fabrication. So she has not yet reported that on her show, and neither I think is anybody else on MSNBC, because, again, they're not there to report the news. They're there to push a narrative in the service of their partisan affiliation, which is the Democratic Party. And look, taking the big picture here, when you look at every single plank of RussiaGate, all of it directly comes from the Clinton campaign, all of it. So the first thing is collusion, right? Where does that come from? That started with the Steele dossier, paid for by the Clinton campaign. Then there's this theory, and part of that too would involve fabricating this Trump-Russia bank story, which again was paid for by the Clinton campaign, overseen by their lawyer, and he billed the Clinton campaign for it. Okay, so that's collusion. Comes from the Clinton campaign. Then you have this thing about social media, Russian social media bots, and this theory that swung the election for Trump, and that these Russian trolls waged this sophisticated brainwashing American operation that duped millions of Americans into not voting for Hillary Clinton. That also comes from the Clinton campaign. The Washington Post revealed this, that Facebook, when they initially looked at all these Russian social media ads, they concluded that this was just basically a commercial operation of people putting out these memes and ads to try to get traffic, to try to target certain audiences like evangelicals and African Americans, build a following which they could then leverage to sell ads to vendors. Okay, that's what Facebook initially concluded. But then veterans of the Obama and Clinton campaigns, they looked at this and they came up with theories that really this was part of an operation to swing the election. And Mark Warner, the head of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, he personally flew out to Facebook's headquarters and shared with them this new theory. And not long after that, at a time when Facebook was facing heavy scrutiny from Congress and wanted to play ball, then Facebook came out with this new theory that really this was the Russian government trying to interfere in our election. And Facebook apologized, and that was supposed to be this big scandal. And then we have the foundational claim, the thing that started it all. This allegation that Russia hacked the DNC, stole emails, and gave them the WikiLeaks as part of this operation to install Trump. Well, where does that come from? Who generated that? That comes from a private company called CrowdStrike, who was hired by none other than Michael Sussman, the same guy who's now been indicted by John Durham for taking part in, for lying to the FBI about a fabricated scheme that he was pushing to tie Trump to Russia. So it raises new questions about, just how far does this scam go? And all of us have been told for 4 years that if we question this allegation that Russia hacked the DNC, that we're committing sacrilege, we've been attacked for it, as if we have to trust whatever the FBI and CIA tell us. But The fact that Sussman was involved in hiring them, the fact that Sussman hired them at the same time as his colleague at Perkins Coie hired the Fusion GPS to concoct the Steele dossier, and the fact that we haven't seen any of the evidence used to make this attribution to Russia, plus the fact, and we've talked about this before, that we learned 3 years after the fact that the CEO of CrowdStrike, Sean Henry, he admitted under oath that while in public his firm was accusing Russia of stealing emails from the DNC, that he told them under oath that actually they had no evidence of it. They had no evidence whatsoever. And the media, no mainstream liberal outlet has reported this damning admission.
And he admitted that in, pretty sure, 2017.
December 2017, that's right.
Yes. Yeah. So in 2017, the guy who said Russia did this said, we don't have any evidence that Russia did this. And and no one reported that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, Jimmy, so just to wrap it up, given the fact that Sussman, Clinton's lawyer, was involved in a scheme to try to plant, fake stories in the media and the FBI tying Trump to Russia, you have to wonder if CrowdStrike was a part of that too. That basically, because what did these emails show? They were embarrassing for Hillary Clinton. They showed that she was telling the public one thing, telling Wall Street something else. That they were rigging the primaries against Bernie Sanders. And so if you could tie all this to Russia, then you could distract the public from the content of these leaks and just taint it all really as the work of this evil foreign power that wants to destroy our country. And then if you could tie Trump to Russia, then you could basically distract the public from all of this. So, we don't know for sure what actually happened, but that is my speculation about what actually happened, is that basically just as Fusion GPS was brought in to do a job tying Trump to Russia, so was CrowdStrike. And, so some of us are out there still trying to report the story and get more information because, for example, the public has never seen the reports that CrowdStrike wrote and that the FBI relied on. Remember, the FBI did not inspect the DNC server itself. It relied on CrowdStrike's forensics. So there's a lot that we don't know, but a lot that raises suspicions that the rest of the media just is not following because they were too busy parroting the Trump-Russia scam.
I just want to play this one more time as an indictment of not only MSNBC, but in the press in general, the establishment press. And this is why you and I have a job.
I mean, what more evidence do you need? It's very, very obvious, and it's really Occam's razor here. The fact that we still have not been able to rule out the idea that this was a covert communication channel 2 years after the fact that no one has come forth with a plausible explanation for why this was happening, for why Alpha Bank was one of 3 organizations communicating with the Trump server in those months leading up to the election is just completely remarkable. And I think the fact that Frank's story got overlooked or criticized as much as it did, and the fact that now it's being revisited and you have the editor of the New York Times saying that there, was a story there, just shows the lack of imagination.
The irony of her word choice is just amazing. That we lack imagination, not the people making up the story. This guy. Okay, and he's just sitting there. That's what a lying establishment piece of shit looks like when he puts on a suit coat and goes on MSNBC. When that's the face he makes when he's lying, and he knows he's lying, and that's what it looks like. Isn't that nice to know? They look so nice and white. They look so white and truth telling. Oh boy, it's amazing. Hey, everybody, we're doing stand-up shows everywhere. We're going to Florida, Baltimore, Buffalo, Portland, Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're doing a live Jimmy Dore show in Sacramento, October 3rd. Go to jimmydore.comedy.com for a link for all our tickets.